YouTube says it has had enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we lived in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
Wow. I've been up here a lot. I've never seen a crowd like this. I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly. And you people are victims of it, too. You know, you're reporters, and I understand a lot of you tend to be on the liberal side, but you don't want to get mugged and raped and shot and killed. And you all know people and friends of yours that happened. And so you can be anything you want, but you want to have safety in the streets. You want to be able to leave your apartment or your house where you live and feel safe and go into a store to buy a newspaper or buy something. And you don't have that now. Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people. And we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it.
In the nation's capital tonight, a dramatic change after crime scenes like these. President Trump declaring a public safety emergency, deploying 800 National Guard troops to D.C. and taking control of the district's police department.
This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back.
That federal takeover can last up to 30 days without congressional approval. The troops set to fan out across D.C. over the next week, the White House says, to protect federal assets and deter violent crime.
It's becoming a situation of complete and total lawlessness.
Even though crime statistics from the U.S. Attorney's Office in January said violent crime in D.C. was at a 30-year low, the police department says it was down 26% since last year.
So why do this now?
Crime has gone down. Gone down from what? Gone down from when? Crime is way too high in the district. And, you know, this namby-pamby response that, oh, crime is down. No, it isn't down for the people who are victimized by crime.
The head of the police union tells NBC News the crime stats have been manipulated, and any talk of a recent drop in crime is preposterous. Still, the D.C. City Council calls the federal police takeover a manufactured intrusion on local authority, and the mayor says it caught her off guard.
I don't want to minimize the intrusion on our autonomy.
The move comes after a former DOJ employee was attacked during an attempted carjacking last week. Over the weekend, the president ordered the deployment of nearly 500 federal officers around the district, leading to several arrests.
You know, he's taking federal control of the police, and that's just not okay. I feel like these are the sorts of things that you start to see in dictatorships.
Trump has deployed federal resources to cities before, including thousands of National Guard troops this summer to Los Angeles to quell immigration protests, and thousands of others to the southern border. The president saying federal intervention in other cities like New York and Chicago could be next.
We're not going to lose our cities over this, and this will go further. We're starting very strongly with D.C., and we're going to clean it up real quick.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. Donald Trump has implemented martial law in Washington, D.C. Excuse me. I'm sorry. It's not martial law. It's just the government putting the police under federal control. It's amazing how they can just shift words and tell you that this isn't martial law, what we're doing, and we're going to implement this in more cities. What this is we're just taking over the police. They're going to be under our watch, and we're going to bring in the National Guard because apparently crime is running amok in Washington, D.C. So now you start to see the Hegelian dialect in play. Problem, reaction, solution. 4 years of the Democrats being in power, because remember, they have to do this together. It was 4 years of deliberately looking incompetent, all the stuff we saw with Biden falling down, falling off bicycles, can't complete a sentence, all the stuff we saw in liberal cities, Democrat cities, like Los Angeles and Chicago, where they were openly showing us all of these people running into stores like Nordstrom's and looting the place, and the police don't even show up to arrest anyone. 4 years of that to lead to this, where now the government could say, well, we need to fix this country, because all people remember is the stuff they saw in the news the last 4 years with how Democrat cities were allowed to be looted and people were allowed to run amok and nobody was held accountable. So, of course, conservatives who were once anti-martial law. Remember, conservatives were the ones warning about surveillance states. They're the ones warning about martial law and all these things. Now they're all on board with it, and they don't even realize it. That's how deep the psychosis goes. They're all cheering for this. This is the beginning of the implementation of martial law, and they're never going to tell you that it's martial law. They don't need to come out on TV and say, we're now declaring martial law, everybody is under martial law. But what they can do is they can just start rolling in the National Guard, tell you that it's the police who are under federal control, but there's nothing to worry about here. But as you'll hear, there's a lot to worry about here, because as Pete Hegseth says, as you'll hear later in the video, he talks about how if people are out of order, the National Guard will put them in place and have the rights to arrest them. We'll define people being out of order. Define that, because with everything that we're seeing with the Trump administration passing hate crime laws, anti-Semitic laws and bills, you define what is out of order. So everything has been flipped on its head, because now the conservatives, like the suckers they are supporting this. They aren't standing back. And it shows you just what type of levels of mind control are at play here, where the conservatives believe that Trump can do no wrong. He literally can come out wearing an NWO shirt, and they'll say that he's just joking and trolling, just like we saw with the Democrats. All the ridiculous stuff that was going on for 4 years with Biden, and they were saying everything was fine, everything's okay, there's nothing to worry about. Guys committing crimes in the streets, and they still were supporting their local Democrat political figures, whether it was Newsom in California or some of the crazy people in Chicago. Well, now we're getting to the point where Donald Trump has begun the takeover of DC's police, and nobody really has heard much going on in DC. In fact, as you heard in the news clip, they're claiming the crime rates in DC are down. Now, we can't go by any data that they actually give us. All we can go by in this world, is what I tell everybody, is what we see with our own eyes, and that's not through the television set. That means you'd have to go to Washington, D.C. and walk the streets yourself to observe what's actually happening. Now, most people, of course, will not do that, so they take the news at its word. So when they constantly show us, just like the border, for example, they constantly show us people flooding the border, how convenient that they have the cameras all set up there. You know that they paid these people off to run across the border so that they can film it, all the stuff we've seen in L.A., they've blurred people's vision of what's really happening in the world, which is why I constantly say that news is there to manipulate you, blur the lines of reality. It is the simulation when we talk about a simulated reality. So they create this in everybody's mind, telling everybody that the cities are completely overrun. There's homeless people in the streets. Remember, a couple of years ago, I even covered it. They're showing people shooting up heroin on the streets in San Francisco. The news reporters were standing there. People were just injecting needles into one another. No police to be found, right? Because, of course, the police were told to stand down so that they can carry this out. And now we're seeing the solution. Problem, reaction, solution. Donald Trump calling it Liberation Day in D.C. I mean, look how these people even talk. J.D. Vance, this is a major moment for our country. It's a major moment when the federal government bring in the National Guard, and then on top of all that, tell you that the federal government is now going to be responsible for the police in that area, and soon to be more cities to come. So this is the reaction that you're getting, and I want you to pay attention to this, because this is the hypnosis at its finest, right? This is all stuff that, because remember, Rumble is this conservative hive mind that they've completely, they've built. This gives the government easier access to follow all of these conservatives and everything that they're talking about. And the liberals, of course, are on other platforms like YouTube. And if you're neutral to everything, well, they'll make sure you don't have a leg to stand on, because They can't have people waking up to the left-right paradigm and how they are sabotaging the United States of America by design. So you get people like Tim Cast, right? Trump deploys National Guard to D.C., federalizes police. Liberals protest takeover, right? So they go out there and they talk about how the liberals are going crazy. Everybody has a big laugh about it. Nobody is concerned about Donald Trump deploying the National Guard. But if Joe Biden deployed the National Guard, these people would be going crazy. We're close to martial law, right? But they trust in these people that they don't know. These people, as you'll see, right, most of these characters in Trump's White House are all people that they think they know because they're all people who have been on conservative media. Pretty much the entire crew from Fox News is in Trump's White House. And these people are under such mind control. They're like, I like Jeannie, Judge Jeannie. I like Pete Hegseth. These were journalists, supposedly, on television who are now running our government. You don't think that there's something wrong with that? You don't think that this is a method of mind control? Ooh, I know them. I know him. I listen to his podcast. I watch them on that show on Fox. I trust them. They're not going to do anything wrong because they have the same views as me, right? But again, if you put Joe Biden's name in front of this, deploying the National Guard, these people would be losing it. And that shows you just how deep, again, the psychosis goes. Here's some other alt-right media clowns, right? Breaking news. They think President Trump should impose martial law and send the liberal deep state staffers to Antarctica. So we're actually having debates now in conservative media about actually just deploying martial law. These people who were once opposed to it, who were once saying that that's the absolute worst possible thing that could ever happen, will be the government deploying martial law. Now it's a good thing because they think it's their team that's deploying martial law to get rid of all the people that they don't like, who they disagree with, right? Yeah, let's get them all out of here. Let's get rid of anybody who has a different opinion than us in our conservative hive mind. And then you get this. These are the types of garbage channels, by the way, that are just littered on Rumble. Okay, that get propped up to the main page every time you go on there. Just like YouTube with the nonsense we see. YouTube is more propped up, ridiculous videos like Mr. Beast stuff. Rumble is strictly political, and it's all political pro-Trump propaganda. So Trump's DC crackdown, America's El Salvador moment. So conservatives think that this is a good thing, this El Salvador movement, right? I talked about this clown a couple of weeks ago. Remember this guy, Nayib Bukele? We are birthing superintelligence. We are creating the mind of God, infinite, destined to solve every problem we've ever faced and usher in an age without death. And of course, when I put this video up on Rumble because I wanted to infiltrate the conservative hive mind, there's people defending him, saying that no, what he's doing is he's exposing the deep state by even putting in the Tower of Babel image, right? So Nayib Bukele, this is what they're saying. These people are literally telling us that America is having its El Salvador moment, like it's a good thing. And of course, Bukele is linked and yoked up with MAGA and Donald Trump. They've been pushing this guy for years with these super prisons that he's built out. And everybody's like, yeah, let's get all these criminals into these super prisons. Let's get all these illegals into these super prisons, right? Well, is anybody paying attention to some of the stuff happening in El Salvador? Such as the El Salvador crackdown, which ended up imprisoning a pastor who did nothing wrong. Did you hear about this story? Pastor Jose Angel Perez removed his blue cap and began to pray. He stood under a tree surrounded by members of his congregation, Mission Cristina Elim in El Triunfo, a rural community 15 miles southwest of San Salvador. On the morning of May 13th, Perez took part in a demonstration at the Capitol, just a half a mile from the presidential palace. He joined participants from an agricultural cooperative for small-scale coffee growers called El Bosque, which Perez chairs. The cooperative took a series of financial hits. Members used land as collateral for defaulted loans, and 300 families in El Triunfo faced eviction from their homes. So Perez said, we know that no one can help us. All our companies, our companions, our brothers, our neighbors are going to be evicted from their homes, and only you, God, can touch the hearts of those who have the power and authority to help us. We want to ask that it be you who goes to that place where the president of this republic is, so that he may lend us a hand, so that we may be able to live in our homes, which we have built over the years. Hours later, the pastor was arrested. Authorities also detained the cooperative's lawyer, Alejandro Henriquez, along with Perez. Under the Régimen de Exception, an emergency decree in force since 2022, police held Perez and Henriquez in prison without a formal indictment for weeks. By May 30th, both were charged with public disorder and resisting arrest. They've been in prison without visitors ever since. So that's the stuff that's going on that they're cheering for in El Salvador. A fellow Christian who was praying for help Well, he was, obviously that's public disorder. And haven't we seen that here in America? Of course we have. We've seen that over the last 4 years. How many of you have shared articles on the website? How many of you have talked about people who are getting arrested who are protesting outside of pride parades or protesting outside of Planned Parenthood, getting arrested? That's the future, you see, with this type of law enforcement, with the National Guard, et cetera, in place, this El Salvador moment they're talking about. And don't forget, more importantly, what I talked about, Project Esther, the national strategy to combat anti-Semitism, America's anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, anti-American, pro-Palestinian movement is part of a global Hamas support network that's trying to compel the U.S. government to abandon its long-standing support for Israel, supported by activists and founders, dedicated to the destruction of capitalism and democracy. Okay, so think about that and think about what will happen with some of these, rules in place where they're going to have the National Guard. And I'll get into that momentarily, where you can hear Pete Hegseth talk about and use mind control methods in regards to convincing everybody out there. This is not martial law. I mean, it's as close to martial law as you're going to get. I mean, we're literally one step away from martial law, but it's pretty much almost the same thing with the National Guard there. And then all these other bills that they have in place like that one, where they'll be able to arrest people for disagreeing with the government, because that's exactly what's happening in El Salvador, right? Somebody was against what the government was doing. A minister was praying that they change their mind, that they help these people who are losing their homes and being evicted. And what do they get? Well, they get imprisonment with no visitors allowed, right? Insanity. But of course, you won't hear about that on the news here in America. So Trump puts Washington, D.C. under federal control, and he warns that it's coming to other cities soon. How convenient. All these other cities that we've heard are being run amok by Democrat mayors and Democrat governors. Sabotage anyone? Here's Trump telling us that it's coming to New York, Chicago, L.A., Oakland, lots of cities coming soon to a city near you.
We have other cities also that are bad, very bad. You look at Chicago, how bad it is. You look at Los Angeles, how bad it is. We have other cities that are very bad. New York has a problem. And then you have, of course, Baltimore and Oakland. We don't even mention that anymore. They're so far gone. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to lose our cities over this. And this will go further. We're starting very strongly with D.C., and we're going to clean it up real quick, very quickly, as they say. We're going to have a tremendous success in what we're doing. Other cities are hopefully watching this. They're all watching, just like everyone's watching here. They're all watching. And maybe they'll clean up.
And why not, after all the cities, why not just do it in small communities, right? Because we'll need it in small communities as well. I mean, it's incredible. People don't realize that the military, the National Guard, they aren't fighting any wars that have any purpose over in the Middle East. They're all there to protect this tyrannical government from us. And they're going to be used and deployed to make sure that we comply and stay in line. This is conditioning for martial law. And I want you to hear this clip of Pete Hegseth again on Fox News, where they start talking about martial law. And of course, he used mind control tactics. Like, hey, when we deployed the Marines in Los Angeles, everybody was screaming that it was martial law, but look how great everything turned out, right? Well, you only hear the stories that you hear on the news. You don't hear about stories of innocent people being arrested because of all these ICE agents, which everybody thinks is just to remove illegal immigrants, but an ICE agent could show up at your house or my house, somebody who is a U.S. citizen, and they could deny that you're a citizen because they see what you research online and how you talk about, the government going rogue and the New World Order and AI governance, and they could just arrest you. You'll never hear about it on the news. There'll be nobody there to support you. Nobody cares. We see the world we live in now. Nobody supports one another anymore. Everybody just sees these types of stories and moves on. If there's a story about the FBI raiding some innocent person's home, what do all the people gather together and go to the White House? No, they don't. The government's doing whatever it wants, and they're trying to make sure that you don't think it's martial law. So the conservatives think this is a wonderful thing because Pete Hegseth tells you that it's a wonderful thing.
The question of martial law keeps getting raised by the left, that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth, they want to impose martial law as authoritarians would. Mm-hmm. To that you say?
To that I say, look at Los Angeles. They said the exact same thing. Oh, look, 4,000 troops, California National Guard. Oh, look, the Marines. You can't put in the Marines. What? They were the troops available to ensure that we de-escalated the situation and didn't allow other lawbreakers to say, look, it's wide open. We can do whatever we want in these sanctuary cities. I was told Oh, you're going to lock up political opponents. You're going to go after Democrats, yada, yada. It's the same stuff every time, mischaracterizing our intentions. The intentions of this president is to establish law and order using legal and lawful and constitutional means, which he completely has. And you know what? You know why they don't like him? He's got the guts to do it. He's got the guts to say, I'm going to federalize the police that don't work. I'm going to bring in the National Guard. I'm going to bring in federal marshals. I'm going to bring in the park police.
How long will
we're going to control
be?
Who knows? How long? What is the?
Well, it costs money, right?
Sure, it does.
It costs money, and the question is, are you there for a year? Are you there for 6 months? And when the troops pull out, what happens?
I would call this conditions based. I would say it's a situation where we're here to support law enforcement. And the more we can free them up to do their job, the more effective they can be, the more we can work. I mean, this isn't my realm, but the justice system to make sure people who are arrested are actually locked up. That's why the president's talking about cashless bail in sanctuary cities. If you're illegal here in D.C., that's going to be a problem. So all of these things that apply to law and order are front and center for us. And I don't know, weeks, months, what will it take? That's the president's call. But we're going to be there for him to execute as swiftly as possible.
Will the National Guard be detaining Americans on American soil?
Under Title 32, which is the authorization they'll be using, they have broad latitude, but they're not going to be involved in law enforcement functions. They will be standing right alongside our federal agents like they were in Los Angeles. They're going to be proactive. If you take an action or a shot at them, there will be a consequence. So they're going to be strong.
So if a crime is being committed, in other words, and a National Guardsman sees a crime being committed, then what?
They can come alongside and assist law enforcement.
What if law enforcement isn't on
then
that
they can
corner?
take. Then they will. I will have their back to ensure they can take the necessary action to protect citizens of D.C. and to protect themselves. So there's no rogue law enforcement going on from the National Guard, but there's also the application of common sense. We're not going to have National Guardsmen sitting there like this, seeing a crime committed and not do something about it. You can help somebody, interdict, temporarily detain like we did in Los Angeles, and hand over to law enforcement. Those are the types of things the National Guard can be trained to do.
So they're trying their best to convince you that this is a great thing for the United States of America, right? Instead of just having the police do their job as they usually do. Of course, we know the Fraternal Order of Police has been told to stand down, especially in these Democrat cities. They've been told to stand down. That's why so much crime is happening, because the police aren't showing up to do anything about it. That's why they show you all these clips from the malls and, like I said, Nordstrom's, right? That big story at Nordstrom's, there's 20 people. They just show up. They loot the place, and then they go outside. There's no cop cars. No police show up. And they're allowed to just roam the streets free. All done by design. That's sabotage. Stand down. These are government operations. These are paid government, employees. We're paying them to go rob and loot because this is the Hegelian dialect. Problem, reaction, solution. And then after a couple of years of showing you this stuff, we'll start implementing martial law, but we won't tell them it's martial law. We'll call it the police under federal control. And then we'll have the National Guard roaming the streets, right? And as he said, hey, if anyone's out of line, the National Guard can arrest you. The National Guard can step in. They're not just there to stand there with their arms folded. Right. So if a regular person like me or you starts yelling about, hey, the New World Order, or say you say something about Zionism, right? Say you say something about Zionism, which is a political movement, which if you don't understand how all this stuff works, I mean, really, better wake up now before it's too late, because there's still even people on the website who are talking about Zionism being one and connected to God. The Zionism political movement started by the Rothschilds. They really, a lot of people just are not understanding it because, of course, the alt-right, well, let's just call it the alt-right hypnosis that we're seeing with Israel, that nobody wants to read the book of Revelation about the synagogue of Satan, those who say they're Jews and are not Jews, or any of the Bible verses that warn us about these deceptions that they're all under because of the alt-right media. So they love all this stuff that they're seeing, but they're forgetting about Project Esther. So let's just remember that, the national strategy to combat anti-Semitism. So somebody's in the streets and they're in D.C., and they're not, what do you think? That they're just going to be, people are running around smashing windows in D.C. right now? I mean, I think it would be viral on Twitter or TikTok or somewhere if it was like the purge in D.C. right now, right? We would see footage of it because some civilians would record it and upload it. Nobody sees anything going on. So what are they doing? They're going to be walking the streets, right? So what if somebody is standing on a sidewalk and they have a sign that says, I stand with Palestine, or whatever hypnosis they're under? You don't think that they'll be detained and arrested, right? Anyway, it's speaking out against Israel, of course, they will be. So I think one of the most incredible things in this psychosis over the last, since Trump has gotten put in power here in 2025, is how every one of these people in the cabinet, starting with Hegseth to this person, Jeannie Pirro, vows vengeance for anti-Semitism, right? All of these people were literally on these talk shows on Fox News, and they're now all making up the political party. Look at all these people who are members of Trump's cabinet, who are anchors on Fox News. So it tells you why they did that. They did that because they want the audience out there to think they can trust in what Trump's doing. Because all those people watch these guys' podcasts, watch them on these shows, and they talk about the things that they're concerned about, right? They'll mention Epstein, they'll mention immigration, they'll mention God, of course, to deceive them, even though these people are not working for God. And when he puts them in their cabinet, they're like, Trump's doing the right thing. Oh, yeah, this guy knows. Dan Bongino, he knows. They know. Judge Gino, oh, Pete Hegseth knows. These are literally people who are journalists who are now running your government. If that's not mind control, I don't know what is. And it just is more proof that these people on the news stations are all government assets who are trained by the CIA. They're trained at the Tavistock Institute. They know how to talk. They know how to get people's attention. You see how Hegseth talks on the... I mean, these people are going to get sucked right in. They're going to be like, yeah, it's not martial law. It worked out great in LA. We need this in every city, right? And even if they did come out and call it martial law, I think that these people would be convinced that it's the best thing for the United States now. So all the people, all the conservatives who have always warned about surveillance state, martial law, too much government control, tyranny, they're all cheering now. It's an upside down. It's the upside down, right? And if we had Biden doing all this stuff, those people would be going nuts saying, this is, the government's gone rogue. This shouldn't be allowed. We need to stop this, right? But it's funny how they don't even realize that they're communists themselves. They're obsessed and addicted to their party, and they've been trained to hate the other party so much that they'll ignore all the stuff going on because they just don't want to see the other party in control. Instead of the citizens rallying together, saying that these people are supposed to be working for us, and all they're doing is dividing us. All they're doing is taking away our rights every single day. They're bringing in artificial intelligence without our approval as citizens. Did any of us approve this? No, we did not. They tell us every day that AI is going to take all our jobs. So why are we allowing it? Think about all the stuff they're getting away with because of the division that they've caused. And nobody's uniting. In fact, everybody is just so deep in the hypnosis that we now have conservatives who are okay with the government deploying the National Guard in all of these cities. But again, if it was the other way around, they'd be screaming New World Order. But they're not. Why? Because they're in the conservative hive mind, and they're just as bad as the libtard, Democrat, whatever you call it, progressive hive mind. None of these people have a clue that they are living in a simulation. They are being played like pawns in the game. And now we're seeing people cheering this on. And we'll see where this goes and what other cities they start implementing. But don't forget, this is our El Salvador moment, right? Which means I'm sure we can expect Christians who are anti-Israel to get rounded up too. And these people will cheer for it. And they'll be like, you know what? They're no brother or sister of mine if they're anti-Israel. These people don't know anything about the Balfour Declaration, the state of Israel, nothing. They just see the word Israel and they're on board, right? It's like, it's really something. I don't even know how to explain it. I don't know how to explain it other than to say that they're under hypnosis. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.